Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Mike. I'll be your host. This is the Leadership Toolkit. As you know, it's your definitive leadership growth podcast. Each week, I have phenomenal guests on the show. People literally from all over the world, all over the US mostly, and all different verticals of business that spend time with me so that you can be a fly on the wall and you can tune in and listen in and you can learn from their successes. Sometimes you learn from their failures. And hopefully we just learn every single time. Today is no different. I've got an absolutely phenomenal guest with me, Pete Stege. He is what happens when you have a brilliant tech founder that suddenly becomes the CEO and finds himself in a leadership role. And he's a best-selling author. He's a growth strategist, and he is the CEO and advisor. He works with B2B Clarity. He owns B2B Clarity. And so I have him on the show with me today. Pete Stege, welcome to the Leadership Toolkit, man.
Mike, it's great to be here. Really
Thank you.
Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Me too, man. I'm really excited. So if you would take a couple of minutes and just share with the audience sort of what is your background? You went from tech strategist, I guess, into CEO and leadership, and obviously you have a lot more colorful background than that. If you would share just a little bit, and let's get into it.
Well, I'd actually take it a step before that. I was actually an engineer out of school. And so my first steps in business were working for IBM. So in the bowels of the chip fab. And fast forward from there, I found that my real passion was closer to the customer and the engaging with people. So I found myself, got an MBA, and I found myself in a lot of different tech businesses, some really big, some startups in the Silicon Valley, and a few in between. And while I did a lot of different things, the common theme of my several decades of corporate life was marketing and growth and strategy, right? How to position what you do and say in a way that engages your customers.
Gotcha. And so how does that lead you to where you're at now? Like, and first off, is I usually will get way into the show and then I'm like, oh, hey, let's backtrack. What is B2B Clarity? How was that born then?
6 years ago, I decided it was time to get out on my own. I had things to share. And who I wanted to share with was CEOs of these tech B2B firms that I had the chance to work with. And I realized I had kind of cracked the nut on some of the challenges that these technical experts turned into CEOs were struggling with. And, the business is really about me standing side by side with that CEO and helping them figure out what is the magic, I call it the true story. What is the core meaning of their business? Because often they haven't really clarified that, thus B2B clarity. And then when we find that nugget of truth, we make that the foundation of their business, both for them, gives them a compass, for them with their team, it aligns their team in a way nothing else does, I found. And then also as a way to engage and stand out in the market. So that one truth has something that I've helped CEOs use to transform their approach and take them from confused, not getting a response with either their team or their market, people not being on the same page, reacting to changes. We all know there's crazy change going on in the world.
Sure.
And this, they find that they have a much better handle on navigating all that and staying on track and pursuing their dream, really. I like to say, there's a company in almost every industry. It's head and shoulders above all the other companies. You could just tell, right?
Sure.
All the people want to work for them. All the customers are most comfortable hiring them. Press reaches out to them first. They're the ones that get investment. They're the ones that sell for the multiples, right? It's just, they're really good. What's that special thing? What I say is those CEOs have institutionalized their magic. And
that's a good line.
That's what I help them do. That's what my business is this thing that they didn't make sense to them is actually the most important core thing of their business. And I help them find that and put it to work.
So I love that. I'm going to go back here in time for just a second. One of the things that you started with, and some of this stuff that I love diving into, and I'm seeing more of this. Some people that I've interviewed, Pete, are people that are moving from like an engineering role into a leadership role. And traditionally, and again, not to try and like make a stigma or put everybody in a box, right? But traditionally, engineers are the people sort of behind the scenes. They're messing with the things and adjusting. At least that's how I've seen them. They're not, and like you mentioned, you said, hey, I ended up that I was good on the front end, dealing with people and working with people and so forth. Do you remember when you were making that transition from like employee slash engineer into this leadership role? What were some of the things that you knew you needed to take with you? Like, or that you needed to develop to move to this next role? Because one of the things, let me frame it up this way, because like where you're saying, hey, we've got to get clarity, and you help coach people with clarity and so forth. One thing that I know to be true is to be able to coach anybody, you have to know that somewhat, at least a little bit about yourself, right? And so I'm curious, when you're making that transition from employee slash engineer into whatever that first leadership role or leadership title was, what were some of the first things you realized that you needed to learn to be able to take with you to be effective?
Well, I think that, I mean, there's a couple thoughts there.
Sure.
The perspective I had as an engineer, and I think this is pretty typical for technical experts, is the focus is on what we're doing, what we're making, what the capability, the thing we have, right?
Mhm.
And it can be very noble. We want to share the good news about this technology or this system or whatever it is that our solution is, because it's really good and we know it is
Right.
because we're the expert, right? What I learned, and to be fair, Mike, I didn't learn it right away. It took a long time.
Sure.
Is that is not speaking in the language of your audience. Your audience is not in your world and ready to appreciate the coolness of your product, even if it's useful for them. Where they are is they're removed from that and they're living just like we all are in their crises and in their tasks that they can't get done and their worries, right? And their challenges. And if you come to them with that story about what you do, they can't hear it. They can't give you time to tell it. So what I found I needed to learn, and what is important for every CEO, is to drive their company to change that story into the language of the customer, not you. I like to say it's not about you. That's one of the mantras, for CEOs. And that's
Sure.
true for sales and marketing, external messaging, but it's absolutely true for CEOs with their leading their team too, right? The servant leader, it's not about the CEO if it's going to work. It's got to be about the mission.
No, I think that's really good. So it sort of moves from the, you know, what are we making? What are we doing to, and this is what I'm hearing you say, like, okay, what's the story and what do you need? Sort of question line. So I'm curious then, as you're moving into that and you're saying, okay, so you're seeking your own clarity. And again, thinking back, because you got to be able to share that with others. When you were making that move and you're saying, okay, hey, I got to get clear on what it is that I need, how did you first approach that? Were you seeking out other people? What sort of questions were you asking, Pete, to really start to get your own clarity, that then later on, who knew that, like hindsight's 2020, then you're going to be able to pass that on to others? Do you recall that?
What I remember is, so I did have the opportunity to, at this point, this decision point for me,
Hmm.
I was able to jump out of work and go to an MBA course for a year and a half. And so that was a gift. You don't have to do that, right? To learn from my
Sure.
experience. But what that helped me with is, all the head knowledge about leading and business and how it works. For an engineer, that was really refreshing. Finance and all those things. That was a key part for me. Was just learning, being going to school. Um, and then I'm reflecting on those first jobs out of MBA school, or now I'm a marketing I'm a business person, right?
Right.
And I think part of it was innate, and that is I think I have a tendency to want to focus on things that are meaningful. So
Mm,
why, right? The why is this important? And so it was maybe easy for me, or that was a way I could transition from this how or what into a why communication in my job at that time, my early job. So I was able to communicate, and that's about communicating, right, and connecting,
sure.
even if it's at a low level. But then over time, I found that that's basically what it comes down to is meaning. It's not a word you read about in business courses or marketing, but I put that right at the center. Business is about creating relationships. Actually, that's really the whole job, is creating relationships between you and your customer, creating customers, you could say.
Sure.
And the only way to create a relationship is to have a reason for you and your customer and that's meaning. So finding that meaning and connecting, making that the center of your relationship, shared meaning, is what I found to be the secret to that leadership of you, your team, and your market.
No, I love that, man. And I mean, that sort of leads into you sent me a few bullet points, and where you're talking about, hey, don't manage people, don't even necessarily manage relationships, but relate. Right. How do you get, I'm saying relationships and relate in the same sentence. So I guess that doesn't, how do I better break that down? Right. How do you more effectively lead your team, lead the customer through that relationship? And you're saying that starts with finding mutual meaning.
Yeah, and if I can, I think
Yeah,
there's 3 pillars to finding that meaning.
I love it.
This is what I coach people on. First is authenticity.
Okay.
Be yourself, be real, be honest, be transparent. It doesn't just mean, tell the truth. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying have integrity, right? Be
Sure.
who you say you are, and say to your team and your market what you are going to do and what you do. And that's where that clarity comes in, right? The more you can be clear and authentic about who you really are, both your business and you as the leader, that's number one.
Okay.
Number two is intentional, being intentional, doing things on purpose, having a reason. Now, as a CEO, for example, having
Mhm.
a reason for every important activity in your business. Have that be your culture, that we do things for a reason. We don't just do them because they feel good, or we did it last year, or we're scared of a competitor. We step back and we have a plan. We know where we're going, and we intentionally choose the fewest things we can, that if we execute on them, we're going to be successful. So it's about doing less and doing it better. And then the third thing is generosity. This gets back to, it's not about you, but to have a view of the world and your business that says it really isn't about us. We're in business to add value over there at that particular customer. And if we want to be successful, everything we do should be what they need and want. And the money will come from that. If we do that well, that's what a business is really for, is delivering value to customers, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
finding that you focus on that generosity as one of those 3 pillars. Again, not a word you hear in marketing textbooks.
No,
It's
no,
really
I
important.
think that's excellent. I think that is absolutely phenomenal. And just to recap, and you'll learn this about me, I always try and sort of recap, so what you're saying and what I'm hearing, match up. And so I love the fact that you said, authenticity. And when it comes to authenticity, it's not just telling one person what you're going to do. You said, hey, look, tell the people, tell your company, tell your customers, tell people what you're going to do, and be authentic and transparent with that. I love that, because it creates some level of self accountability or business accountability, right? I love the intentionality piece. I think, and just speaking frankly, where you were saying, okay, hey, be intentional with what you're doing, where you're going, do this on purpose. I think as leaders, and this is just my opinion, and it's one of those, like, oftentimes, like when we're pointing out and I'm saying, I think as leaders, right? Well, I got three fingers pointed back at myself because I've experienced this, right? Intentionality can be hard just because of time, right? So it's easy to fall into, there's all these other things that have to take place, all of these other pieces that have to fall into place in business. And so that thing that we were going to be intentional with, that stuff that we were going to do on purpose, it's kind of easy to I don't know, make it up in your head and go, well, we can set that aside and do it later because we already have a plan for that. But this thing came up, and that turns you into a firefighter,
Yep.
right? At work. And then I absolutely love where you said generosity. And I think the generous piece, two things that you added in there. And I've said this to my crew regularly. Like, it's not just about doing something, but it's about doing something well and serving people well. Like, I think it's easy to lose sight of often why did we start the business? The reason that most businesses are successful is because they provide some needed product or service. You're not just in business to be in business, right? And so that piece there of, okay, how are we going to really serve people well? Can you go a little bit deeper on that generosity piece? When you're saying that, how can I be more generous in my business when seeking clarity?
So I work with CEOs a lot. So I'm going to talk
Yeah.
about how a CEO
Yeah.
can do that, because their job is to model that, to model all these things. CEO's biggest job is not to do the work. It's not to be busy. It's to be the steward of the true story, to be the one that every day is representing the purpose, right? The reason we're all here. Because
Love it.
that's who else is going to do that? You're the one that can do that. And you do that not by what you say, but by what you do. So from a generosity perspective, an example of that is, it doesn't have to be the CEO that asks these questions, but companies that have this generosity spirit, meetings will have more and more conversations about customers rather than profits. So instead of saying, how much can we charge for this new feature? The question becomes, how little can we charge for this feature? And you say, oh, we're giving away money. No, if you have a generous spirit, how can you do that credibly and with the math? Your motive is different in those two cases, right?
Absolutely.
The other thing that's different is the language inside the company is similar to the language of the customer's world. They're not they're us, right? They're
Right.
part of who you're trying to live in their world. So the way you talk about things, the way you think about things, the issues you deal with, hopefully more and more are the issues that they have rather than the internal issues that you're dealing with to help you have a better experience, right?
Sure.
And then the other thing I'll say is on the sales and marketing process. This is a great example of generosity in action. Giving versus taking. And I'm going to give you an example. First impressions in a sales process. In the first case, salesperson emails or calls or texts and says, hey, I've got this great thing. I know it'll be useful for you. You have time next week for us to have a chat about it.
Sure.
I'm asking for their time for me to tell them about my thing. That's their first impression of me. I'm a take. So that's that traditional, the stereotypical salesperson. Doesn't sound that bad on the surface, but you are taking. Versus, hey, so-and-so, you told me about this issue you had. I wanted to share this new configurator we came up with that I think it was really in line with the kind of issues you talked about. I'd love to walk you through it if that's useful to you. And sincerely saying that, you are giving in that first interaction.
It's such a minor shift.
Huge difference. I know it's so subtle, but if you're the customer, over time, if you're consistent with that behavior, they trust you. Trust is how business is won.
Well, and my default, I always go back to, I've got 20 years in the car business in sales and marketing, right?
Oh yeah.
And so even as we're talking about this, and it's so simple, and there's, over time you innately sort of change and shift the way that you approach that. But in this, whether it's, widgets that you're selling, knives that you're selling, alarm systems that you're selling door to door, if or cars in this instance, that's the shift from saying, oh, hey, you submitted information and I want to be able to share this, Ford Explorer with you. When can you come in? You're taking their time, right? Versus, hey, listen, I got the inquiry and you had asked this, and this, and I want to be able to answer those effectively for you. When would you have time to help find the solution, and tell me your strategy about shopping and so forth. So something, and again, they could be the same thing. You could probably frame it better for me. It's processing through my head right now as you're saying that. And it's like, it really is a difference in that attitude of service and generosity of like, hey, I want to serve you and help you find this solution in the widgets that you're buying, and the car that you're buying, and the home that we're going to go look at, compared to, hey, I need you to give me your time so I can show you this thing I have to sell.
And that's why I called it magic earlier.
Yeah.
It's not on the surface. You'd have a hard time quantifying the difference of what we're talking about.
Sure.
But behind the scenes, in the intent and in the energy and in just the steady state behavior, hard to measure, but your customers and your audience and your people absorb. They know, they unconsciously, might even be unconsciously. That's why I call it magic. It really is. You can't do it in the old fashioned, SEO, this many clicks, CRM, this and that.
Capture the eyeballs.
Those are all tools.
Sure.
But that's not the core of your business. The core of your business is this magic.
Speaking of the core of your business, one of the things that you said earlier was, helping people get clear and have standout culture and so forth. What are some more things? And I think I know, and some of this you've probably touched on. If I'm the CEO, I'm the person that ideally, and one thing is, a really good CEO, you won't be saying I, but we are for the sake of this conversation. Sure. So just bear with me on that. If I'm that CEO, I'm the leader, I'm the tip of the spear in the organization. And how can I be more effective at helping to create culture when engaging with my people?
I'm going to mention two ideas for you there. One, we already talked about, and it's this idea of modeling it. Don't preach about it, just do it, right? Demonstrate the choices there's choices that you make as the CEO that your team, whether you know it or not, is observing. They're checking to see if what you said is actually true by what you do. So for example, if our business has a value about, we're not about price, we're about value. Okay. But then under pressure, it's a bad quarter, cash flow problems, the CEO, accepts a deal with a customer that he just totally lets go of the price, right? That says a lot more than what the thing on the wall says about value.
Sure.
So that's the first thing, modeling. The second thing is a concept I call zero culture. Now that doesn't sound very good, but I use that as just a way to describe it. Okay. I believe that company cultures are formed best when they're not artificially layered on top of a business, but they're actually the core of the business coming out. So companies that have the strongest cultures have this thing I call a zero culture, where instead of piling on, they've actually peeled away the things that are getting in the way of everybody rallying around that truth for the business. And the culture is that true story. You can see the truth in that when I talked about the part about generosity, right? That
sure,
we're here to help. If you can peel away the frictions and the tensions and the complications and the distractions, and have the team and the business focus more and more and more on delivering value to that client we've defined with this thing capability that we do, and have everybody rally around that and the customer. You don't need to make a culture. You need to uncover your culture to make it. And that's a culture that is rock solid because it's not created. It was there all along, right? It was there with your reason for creating the business.
I love that line that you just said. You said, hey, we don't need to make a culture. We don't need to create a culture. We need to uncover it. Yep. Because I remember some years ago, I had a mentor. I'm in, business, and I had a mentor that said to me that was like, hey, who are the people that are the leaders on the floor? Who are the ones creating the culture? And we would always like to think that it's us, right? Oh, well, it's me. But the reality is it dovetails into a little bit of what you're saying. Like, you have to uncover the culture. There are other people that have that are driving culture, that are driving leadership, that are that when they speak, the rest of the team listens, and it's not always the person at the top. So the person at the top needs to know that and speak into those people, right?
Right.
So I have another question for this zero culture, because I like that term. When one of the things you led with is you said, hey, we don't artificially inflate the culture. So let me ask you, can you give some examples, 3 or 4 things that CEOs or top level leaders do where they try to artificially inflate the culture?
My favorite one, most notorious one, is the mission statement by committee. So you get way too many people in a conference room that are executives, and you craft corporate speak mission statement. It has all the right words in it, and
rock solid. It's
just all the things it should say, and that becomes the ink, the core, and that goes on the wall, right? That you put a big poster up in the lobby, and that is a perfect example of trappings that are actually getting in the way of your culture, because that's not who you are, and it tells people that you don't know who you are when you put that on the wall.
That's a good line. Tells people you don't know who you are when you put that on the wall. Mission statement by committee. So don't do that. So couple of reminders. I know we're a little ways into the show. I've had these on the screen several times, but for the sake of anybody that might be listening to the podcast, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or otherwise, a couple of things that I want to point out. You can connect with Pete Stege. It's Stege. At his website is B2B Clarity.com. That's B, the number 2, B dash Clarity, CLARITY.com. So make sure and check out his website for, coaching and many other offerings that he's got available there. Also, if you want to connect with him one-on-one, LinkedIn, I always share LinkedIn here on the show. You can look for Pete Stege. It's Pete. His last name Stege. Again, it's Steege. You can type that in, all one word, and you'll get him to show up there on LinkedIn. So
Mike, can I add something there?
100%. Yes.
We talked about this earlier. On my website, there's a page just for your audience called it's at my website /toolkit.
Yep.
And I've got some free resources for your listeners that will hopefully help them be better leaders.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I will make sure and include that in the show notes as well. So B2B-clarity.com /toolkit. So thank you for that. So a couple things that I want to hit on here. I sit here and I take notes. So often if I break eye contact, I'm sitting here writing stuff down. One of the other things that you brought up, and it's really interesting because you're saying, hey, I moved from, in the engineering space into CEO, and like literally everything that we've talked about, Pete, is having to do with people, right? Culture and growing culture, and what is it that we're doing to serve, and authenticity and intentionality and generosity. It's all this people engagement. And one of the things that we see often online, whether you get your news from some social media or news sites, we talked a little bit about news, not to go down that rabbit hole. One of the things that we are fed through a lot of these online outlets or news sites and so forth is the direction of all of the tech, the AI, the robots that are from moving robots to robots doing flips and all this other tech stuff. But leadership is so heavily human. And so one of the things that you said was like, hey, how do you build more trust in a tech driven world? Gosh, say that 5 times fast. So could you help maybe give us, 3, 4, 5 tangible items? If I'm in a leadership role, certainly I got to know the tech, I got to know AI, I have to know the things that are out there, and how do I use those for tools? I think one of the things that I read recently is it's more important to replace the repetitive tasks than it is to replace the people. So how do we engage the people to win more in this space?
It's a great question. I'm really glad you brought AI up.
Yes.
Because it is, you're very observant. My message is, and this isn't just a marketing thing, this isn't a part of the company, the most human wins. The world we're in now and the things that are happening that are underway with AI, when it comes to engaging with customers, are breaking the traditional system. We've all experienced our inboxes doubling or tripling with AI created content online, social media. More and more, when I look at feeds, I assume it's a robot that created that. And what does that mean? 2 things. 1, you can't read all your emails in anything.
Sure.
And 2, I don't want to read something a robot wrote, right? So we're losing those channels as a way to connect as a business, as a way to connect with our prospects. And you say, well, email is not important anyway. It's true for anything with a screen, to be honest, because videos aren't there yet, but we all know the fast change in a matter of time. If I'm not talking to you face to face, I really don't know for sure that I'm talking to you. So that's a problem for business, because face-to-face meetings don't scale, right? That is not the answer. Oh, we're just going to use, we're going to show up at their door every day, or we're going to just go to trade shows. Well, that's not the answer. The answer lies between those 2 extremes.
Okay.
Content flood and, back to the ice age. And I believe that companies that don't cower from this, or don't deny it, don't put their head in the sand and and start wrestling with this challenge of how do we show up authentically, there's that word again, and look like humans, not just look like humans, be trusted as humans by our customers at scale. And the companies that, they don't have to be good at it, they just have to be better than everybody, the other people, to win, because there is going to be a meaning desert, you could call it, right? There's going to be, and we're already almost, they can feel it coming, right? That it's just junk. It's just junk. And I don't want junk. I want to talk to somebody. I want to deal with, I want to relate. I want to get solutions. And companies that figure out how to do that better than the average are going to be the ones that thrive through this next period of AI. But I also want to add one other thought about AI, and that is from a CEO's perspective.
Yeah.
There's an AI mindset that's really important for CEOs to adopt. These tools are proliferating, not just in content, throughout the business.
Sure.
There was an Harvard Business Review study that came out. I don't have the name of it. Just a couple weeks ago, that they did a study and said, these 200 employees that we did an in-depth study of, their AI didn't help them with their job at all. It made it worse, because the free help pushed them off target, pushed them off their game. They started to involve themselves in things that wasn't their job. They started to do things have more trouble with home and work, life-work balance. There's also all kinds of issues of throwing this productivity disruption in. So CEOs, what I like to say is the most important thing for a CEO is you got to decide how your company is going to relate to AI. And I believe the 2 important ways to relate. One is you got to be the boss. AI isn't the boss. You need to tell AI what you need.
Yes.
Right? That solves a lot right there.
Absolutely.
And you need to apply AI back to do things that for a reason, apply AI for a reason, and be the boss and work with it, and don't try to compete with it, or follow it. Those are the ones you don't want to do.
Well, and I think you had a lot of really good nuggets in there, because I mean, it's easy to get lost. There's a new AI every week right now, and it's, well, which one are you using and what's the best one? And like you mentioned, you said, well, hey, video is not there yet, but you see some off the wall AI created videos, which some of them are cool. Like you look at it and go, hey, that's neat. But what is the function that it serves? Like,
Right.
who does that benefit? How is that helping somebody grow? And one of the things, just to dovetail on this for a minute, Pete, because you're saying, hey, like as a CEO, you need to decide where you're headed and what you're doing with that. I think there's even now still a stigma of people admitting, well, yeah, we use AI for stuff. I use all kinds of AI for this show afterwards to help do the transcription, to
I
help
use
do
AI.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, one of the things, and you said this, I don't know that these were your exact words. It's like, you still, when you were saying, hey, you still have to be in charge, you still need a human to put eyes on that and make sure that there is that human element, that it is something that you would be willing, if you're wanting to come from AI's mouth, so to speak, would it carry the same impact if it came from your employees' mouths? Would it carry the same impact if it came from one of your managers' mouth or your own as a CEO? Right. And I think that's one of the places where we met, and not to go way, way deep on AI, but one of the places where we miss it. And again, you alluded to this. If you're using it for tasks and for repetitive items, or to help grow certain areas, in my opinion, and you correct me on this if you think I'm off, you still have to treat it, treat that AI, pick one rope and climb it. Don't try and use all of them. Right. I don't know what your take is on
I
that.
believe
Like,
that as well.
yeah, everybody tries to, oh, we got to try this, and we got to try this, we got to try this. Just like an employee, it takes training. You need to invest time in teaching the system what it is that you want, and then stick with that system for some period. So
I agree with you, Mike, and I encourage CEOs to create what I call as a NEO org, NEO, and that is to have 3 kinds of employees on your org chart.
Okay.
Human employees.
Sure.
Human outsourced people, because that's a pretty important piece of a lot of businesses now. And agents, AI workers. That's how you change. That's how you think about this in a way that's intentional. And to your point, it's not free to sign up for a free tool. It's not, because your brain can only handle so much, right? You've just whatever you sign up for, you've just taken mind share away from the other things you're working on, right? So it really is important. And I think, to your point, AI, when you treat it as it's not a person, but it takes the work. If you invest in it as a hire, then it forces you to respect the training time, the learning time, the ramp, all those things.
As I don't know what, because I don't want to call it an employee, right?
No,
but it's
I don't believe that. Right.
But it's like you said, but you have to invest time in it as you would a regular employee, an agent, whatever,
and
as part of your business.
To your point, there's also system costs, right? You build a process in your system, and if it's a total Wild West with AI tools, those processes can't settle in and come up with a process, because everything's always changing. So there's value in constancy with some things.
Absolutely. So a couple things, kind of as we're coming to the tail end. I think I failed to mention at the beginning, Pete, and I apologize for that. As I mentioned, with Pete coming on, he's obviously CEO, gone to leadership training and consulting, or moving into that CEO role, helping people find clarity. You guys can see that through this conversation. Just absolutely phenomenal. You're also an amazing author. Your, I think, latest book, Radical Clarity, right?
That's right.
So that would you tell the audience just about that for a little bit. Why did you decide to write the book? And the full title, Radical Clarity, How Accidental CEOs Uncover Meaning, Lead with Purpose, and Accelerate Growth.
Well, I'll say, why. My purpose, I'll just live what I'm talking about,
Sure.
is to be a guide to others. I feel
Love
I
it.
have a passion for doing that. And writing books is a way for me to do that. And I just get a real kick out of sharing the ideas. We've talked about a lot of the ideas in the book. In essence, what it comes down to is meaning comes from clarity, clearing away the noise for CEOs to find their meaning, and then they deploy it, and that shared meaning creates purpose. And then that, I call it the CMP growth curve, and we talk about ways to do that. But I love to leave you with kind of my informal motto from the book, and it'll make sense to everybody based on our conversation. Find your truth and get out of the way. That's the secret to business. That's the secret to being a CEO. Find your truth and then zero culture it, and let that power, which is bigger than you, drive your success.
I love that line. Hey, we can hang up on that. Find your truth and get out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Stege. Pete, thank you so much for joining me on the Leadership Toolkit today. Couple reminders for everybody. You can connect with Pete at B2B Clarity.com. You can check out everything that he does for CEOs, for business. Connect with him there. Certainly you can connect on LinkedIn as well, linkedin.com /n/Pete Stege, PETESTEEGE. I think I got all that right. And so you can connect with them there. Also, for anyone watching or listening to the show, you can go to b2b-clarity.com /toolkit, and he's got some additional bonus items there, so you could check that out. And make sure and check out his book, Radical Clarity, How Accidental CEOs Uncover Meaning, Lead with Purpose, and Accelerate Growth. And with that, Pete, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today and just share a little bit of your journey, how you gained clarity, and give us some. I think you did a fantastic job just of sharing how some tangible tips of people that they can grab a hold of to be able to learn and grow in their leadership journey.
I really enjoyed it, Mike. So glad we could talk today.
Absolutely. If you would hang out for just a minute, I'm going to go ahead and take us out. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to a close for this episode of the Leadership Toolkit. I really appreciate all your time. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining me and my new friend, Pete. I encourage you, please check out his book, check out his site. And more than anything, I love talking to people like Pete that you can just, you can hear their heart for leadership and for business. I think it's awesome. So I would encourage you to connect with him. Do me a favor, for anybody that's made it to this point of the show, what are the ways that we grow as a podcast? Throw some thumbs up on there, whatever social channel you may be watching or listening on. Make sure you throw some thumbs up or hearts or likes or whatnot. And then share the show if you would. Would love for you to share it on your socials. And most importantly, if there's somebody that needs to hear this message, I know as leaders, man, we can get so diluted in where we're headed. And so if you know somebody that really needs to be seeking some clarity, maybe needs to hear a piece of Pete's message today, send this to them directly. Say, hey, I listened to the show. You need to check this out. This is an awesome message. So please do that. Until we speak next, everybody, stay great. And I will see you back here next Wednesday. We'll talk soon.